Good evening and thanks for being with us. And we start tonight with the fire situation in the northern part of our region. Hundreds of evacuees from Yabamatung First Nation are hoping for a return home sometime soon. That's thanks to some favorable weather conditions in their home community. Our Corey Nordstrom spoke to Chief Harvey Yesno today and has the latest.
People are getting anxious, they want to return.
Edmonton Chief Harvey Yesno currently has about 350 community members in a Thunder Bay hotel, in addition to 80 in Kapuskasing and 150 in Timmins. He says the week since evacuation has gone well, but news of improved conditions has his members excited, and they're in daily talks with MNRF personnel.
Some scattered showers and higher relative humidity values over the last few days. That's really kept fire behavior to a minimum, and as well as it's diminished the smoke output on that fire.
That smoke from Nipigon 45 is the reason the more vulnerable members of Edmonton were evacuated last Wednesday. The blaze currently sits at more than 6,600 hectares with a status of not under control.
Next status will be the fire is held, and then the one after that will be controlled. So we're going to rely on MNRF to provide that to us. I think when we get to the health status, that'll just start to ramp up the plans for return.
And when they're crafting the plans to go back up north, Yesno is hopeful that community members can get a COVID-19 test before departure and has reached out to the district health unit.
Normally that's not done unless you have the symptoms and so on. But I think to ease the minds of the people in the community as well, there's about over 1,000 people there. I think testing would be good.
Though more cooperation from the wind has smoke being blown away from the community, Edmonton will need some more help from Mother Nature.
The hazard is down a slight bit in that Fort Hope area, but it could rebound with some hot, dry weather over the next week.
Corey Nordstrom, TBT News.
Thunder Bay Police are saying very little about a new report that shows the local police service accessed the province's COVID-19 database over 14,000 times to search for people's personal information. According to figures obtained by the Canadian Civil Liberties Association, the City Police Service was second to only the Durham Police Force for searches of the COVID database. And when it comes to searches per capita, Thunder Bay was well ahead of every other police force in Ontario. A Thunder Bay police spokesperson will only say that the force is reviewing the questions and issues raised by the CCLA and will be addressing them in a report to the Police Services Board in the near future. A legal challenge by the CCLA and other groups has convinced the province to end police access to that COVID database. A member of Thunder Bay City Council says she wants to cut the number of council seats around the table from 13 down to 9. First-term councillor Kristen Oliver will ask her colleagues next Monday night to have city administration start a public consultation process with the aim of implementing the change in time for the 2022 municipal election. Similar attempts to reduce the size of council have been tried and failed over the past few decades. Oliver says she's open to options and has heard others suggest an 11-member council. Her rationale is that a smaller council would be more efficient.
I think that it's an opportunity for us to really look at how do we communicate and how do we address the situation and issues that people are having in the community. And I don't know if we need 13 anymore. I think communication, like I mentioned, has really increased. We have an opportunity now where I think people from Nebing and McIntyre and Westford and McKellar, I think we all feel like we have some sort of representation. So are we duplicating the service by continuing to have 13?
Oliver says she has no preconceived ideas about the right number of ward councillors and councillor at-large positions or whether the current hybrid system should remain intact. Those details, she says, should be determined in close consultation with voters. Ontario is reporting an uptick in COVID-19 infections today with 125 new cases and 4 deaths. Health Minister Christine Elliott says the rise is due to increases in Toronto, neighbouring Peel region, and the southwestern area of Windsor-Essex. The number of active cases in the province has risen to 951. 60% of infections detected were in people under the age of 40. And a new poll suggests COVID concerns will not stop parents from sending their kids to school. Yesterday, we told you about preliminary results surrounding opt-in numbers for Thunder Bay. And as other jurisdictions collect their data, there is new evidence that most parents will send their children to class, but with strong reservations. Colin DeMello reports.
Parents across the province are making the difficult decision about whether to send their child back to school in exactly 3 weeks.
There are nights where I don't sleep well. It's a hard decision for any parent. And I talk to everybody I know who's a parent is going through the same thing.
In fact, a new Leger poll found 66% of Canadians who took part in the survey are worried about their children going back to school. Just 31% said they are not worried, and 3% don't know.
It's extremely frustrating. You're being asked to make a decision knowing that everything could change.
Over the course of this week, school boards will find out just how many students will be returning to class. In many boards, roughly 25 to 30% of parents have told a survey that they'll be keeping their kids at home. For those students still in class, the education minister set new parameters yesterday, a full day of learning as well as smaller class sizes.
So we could really maximize the amount of time a student has in front of their teacher while, yes, keeping classroom sizes low. It's not an either-or proposition. We want to try to get both done.
Some school trustees say the goalposts have been moving.
We're presenting as much information out to families as we possibly can, with also being limited in what we have available to us. So I'm very much pointing the finger at the province at this point.
Leaving parents without all the information they need to make an informed decision.
Greg Rickford was among the Ford cabinet members today, hearing concerns of Ontario municipal leaders at day number 2 of the AMO conference. The annual gathering is being held virtually this year due to COVID-19. On today's agenda was the Ministers' Forum, which focused on infrastructure, transit, and resource development. 9 ministers, including Rickford, took questions from AMO delegates on a multitude of topics. The Energy Minister was asked about the sustainability of the province's electrical grids.
Recently up in Red Lake, the very real threat of our hydro lines under siege through forest fires, which are not a phenomenon in Northern Ontario, but certainly last week reminded us how close they can come to our towns and cities, which are connected to major KVP lines. So we'll be including that in the review and the considerations of a comprehensive energy plan.
Arson charges have been laid following a Monday fire on McKellar Island that destroyed a motorhome. Fire crews were called to a bush area near the intersection of Island and Baffin Drives just after 6 in the evening. When they arrived, they found a motorhome and adjacent tent engulfed in flame. Investigators learned that a man had set the tent on fire, which then spread to the vehicle, and a suspect was identified. He was later taken into custody at a Hargrave Street home and charged with arson and failure to comply with a judicial release. That release came in conjunction with another arson case that occurred back in January. The 21-year-old suspect has been remanded into custody. And 2 Toronto men are facing drug-related charges after police broke up a fight on a South Side street corner. Patrol officers came across the pair on Donald Street near Syndicate around midnight last night. While officers were trying to break up the scrap, one of the men attempted to flee on a bicycle. He was apprehended nearby and was found to be in possession of a quantity of suspected cocaine. A search of the other man also turned up cocaine, oxycodone, and a weapon. The first man's been charged with possession and released on bail. The second man, though, has been remanded in custody after being charged with trafficking and carrying a concealed weapon. Well, a cautious approach is being taken as the city looks to reopen the 55 Plus Centre and related programming at the West Arthur Community Centre, and they are asking for public input before they do so. It's been 5 months since the popular facility on River Street has been closed. Community Program Supervisor Dana Heinrich says they've launched an online survey to gauge the interest and comfort level of participants. To maintain safety measures, just one entrance will be used, and they're closing the dine-in option for the building's cafe. But they still need to know what kind of programs the public is interested in.
Fitness programs is a very popular thing here at the centre, so I would think that a lot of seniors would like to get back into their fitness programs or art classes. some of the classes that are more drop-in related, that are cards where people will have to handle them. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to go ahead with those kinds of programming.
The online survey closes August 30th, and Heinrich says they will have a plan for reopening in early September. Thunder Bay Company Sail Superior has a new crown jewel in its fleet. A 50-foot catamaran arrived in the local harbor this past weekend, a catamaran that can carry up to 30 people. And the vessel has been renamed the Welcome in honor of the famous tour boat which cruised the local harbor in the 70s and 80s. Jonathan Wilson has that story.
Sail Superior owner Gregory Heroux says he had a vision 3 or 4 years ago to bring a catamaran to Thunder Bay as a new game-changing tourism attraction. His company received $450,000 in grants and loans from the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund last year, and he then found this vessel for sale located half a world away. It finally arrived in the local harbor on Sunday.
Oh, it was so exciting for me. It was months and months of travel worry, you know, how you could get it here from Martinique, stuck down there with the current situation in the world. The hired crew brought it up, so they shared it to Toronto. A friend of mine brought it up from Rodney, brought it up from Montreal into Toronto. And then I got to join at the Giant. So we got a Zodiac ride out there in the morning, and I jumped on for the last 20 miles of the 4,000 miles that it came.
Heroux doesn't have his captain's classification for the catamaran just yet, so for the rest of this summer, he's offering it up for rentals to anyone who can supply a qualified captain. He's expecting to officially launch it for public tours next spring. Sail Superior already had 2 sailboats and a Zodiac for small public tours around the harbor. But Heroux says this vessel can host 16 to 30 people with a large indoor area if it rains, and 5 cabins down below for overnight micro cruises.
Now we'll be able to take more people, the wedding parties, small wedding parties, the corporates, the family reunions, and just the fact that when we're on the dock, sometimes we're at capacity, and now we have a little bit more capacity.
And the catamaran already has a new name. Heroux says it was inspired by the stories he heard about the popular tour ship that took visitors around the Thunder Bay Harbor several decades ago.
It's called the Welcome Ship for a reason because, you know, the history of Thunder Bay and the Welcome Ship that used to be here, so we've renamed it the sailing vessel Welcome. And we hope that the people who were on the Welcome before realize how much fun that was to just get out and to see the harbor.
Jonathan Wilson, TBT News.
Like a lot of people, I remember the Welcome ship of past very, very well.